Thank you. Thank you for giving me a couple of minutes to take from your time to talk a little bit about the history of global healthcare and research as according to the Arabs. I want to tell a little story about my third grade science class. We had a school unit on great scientists of the world. We heard about Isaac Newton, Albert Einstein. We learned about Aristotle, Pasteur, Fleming, surely all great scientists. I remember coming home that day and thinking, oh, there must be no great scientists from the part of the world that I come from. In fact, maybe Arabs can't be great scientists. That night at dinner, I had the misfortune of sharing this epiphany with my parents. I can probably still imagine seeing the tips of my dad's ears turn red, but also the good fortune of being corrected for life. You see, what I didn't realize is that my father had come to the United States because he was a great scientist and the only toxicologist and urologist at the time studying the impact of mercury poisoning on fertility after the first recorded mercury poisoning outbreak happened in Iraq in the early 1970s. But that's not what my father shared with me that night. Instead, he told me very firmly, don't ever forget your past, but never let it dictate your future. I wasn't quite sure what that meant, but nevertheless, there began my journey as an Arab American. Everyone here today has their own story, but what we share is a collective past of innovators and change makers from the same region that shall help to shape the world as we know it today. We witnessed with COVID how East and West came together to solve a global pandemic through vaccination. But did you know that we have actually been doing that since the start of vaccination? Let me tell you another story of how the world came to know the first vaccine. Of course, part of this story starts with a concerned mother, as most good stories do. Lady Mary Montagu was the wife of an English ambassador in Istanbul in 1716, so roughly 300 years ago. She became very interested in something the Turks called ashi. Ashi engrafted a small dose of the disease into humans in a way that would give mild symptoms and then it would protect against more major disease. This was a practice that had been passed down from tribal Turks for a very, very long time. Lady Montagu studied the process so intensely that she had her son inoculated against the virus along with many other family members, using this tribal mechanism. She also wrote about it in detail and sent these letters to England. When she returned to England, she continued to champion the idea, and she was met with a great deal of resistance from her church, from physicians, from her community. Now we know the origin of anti-vaxxers as well. But she was relentless in her campaign. The game changer happened in 1724, when Dr. Emmanuel Timoni, the Montagu family physician, submitted to the Royal Society a scientific description of the inoculation process as practiced by the Turks. The Royal Society also received a detailed account from Qasim Agha, the ambassador from Tripoli to the court of St. James, saying that Arabs have been practicing inoculation for as long as history could remember. Agha, as a child, was taken by his father, along with his 5 brothers and 3 sisters, to the house of a girl that was sick with smallpox. He said that when the smallpox pustules reached full maturity, the surgeon makes an incision between the thumb and the forefinger and puts a little of the secretion into the wound. The hand is wrapped in a handkerchief, and they wait for a few days, a few pox marks, and this passes within days, and the person is fully inoculated against smallpox. And apparently, this is how the process has worked amongst Arab families. He claimed that out of 100 persons inoculated, a maximum of 2 died, whereas out of 100 people that got the virus naturally, 30 died. He wrote that the practice was so ancient and common in the kingdoms of Tripoli, Tunis, and Algiers that no one actually remembers when this practice first started. It was practiced, he said, by both city Arabs and what he referred to as wild Arabs. Baghdad and Palestine tell a similar story. They popped a pustule, dipped a thorn, and the ooze puncture, and then a healthy individual was punctured with that thorn. All these stories and practices in the region come to conclude that inoculation was invented by the Arabs at some unknown time around 1550, so about nearly 500 years ago, and spread along the trade routes through Africa, Turkey, the Middle East, and into some parts of India. Then in 1796, Edward Jenner, a family doctor from Gloucestershire who was very aware of the writings of the Royal Society, found that cowpox virus found in cows could protect humans against smallpox and started the first vaccination clinic using the same method of the Arabs. With the word vaccine coming from the Latin word for cow, vacca, Jenner became known as the father of vaccination. And the rest, as we say, is history. My story is not meant to discredit Jenner's important work, his status as the father of vaccination, or to correct history. On the contrary, we should not construct everything around a false East-West binary. And that's my point. My story is meant to show that actually, only when the East and West collaborated and respected each other's practices, their research, their shared knowledge, did the global cure for smallpox come about. It took me 40 years to understand what my father meant when he said, "Don't forget your past, but never let it dictate your future." What he meant by this is that we come from an incredible history, and we should be proud of that history. But there is a reason why our eyes are in the front of our heads and not in the back. So we stay forward-thinking, forward-inventing, and forward-building. It's not enough to come from greatness if you cannot continue to innovate that greatness. It also speaks to the power of community. Today, we come together as a community of scientists, philanthropists, artists, entrepreneurs, within a shared diaspora. As individuals, we are remarkable. But as communities, we are unstoppable. So thank you very much.